everyone. Welcome to Project Management Breaking into Tech. I do have some slides. I am not a particularly stuffy person. So yeah, we'll use them, but we're also going to be having some discussion. So if you didn't come to participate in a discussion, you're going to be listening to me talk for the next hour, and I don't recommend that. So my name's Marissa Tapper, as Melinda mentioned. I hold a PMP from Project Management Institute, which I earned in 2016, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means later. I've been managing projects since 2013, and those projects are incredibly varied. They include a Salesforce.com implementation for a very large global Fortune 500, through digital marketing campaigns, and everything in between. In addition to, since we're talking about careers and exploring careers, in addition to hands-on project management work, I do work with companies as a fractional PM. And what that means is I come in, I manage projects for them. We'll talk about why that makes a little bit more sense later. But I'm an Asana certified pro, so I work with Asana clients to help them better implement Asana into their organization. So I don't know why it's doing this. So let's go over our agenda really quickly for this evening. I'm a project manager and I love my agendas. It's very important to set expectations up front about what's going to happen. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, like, what is project management even anyway? There's a lot of misconceptions about what project managers do and don't do and how they do it. So yeah, we're going to talk about what project managers even do. We will talk about, there was apparently some confusion between product managers and project managers.
And program managers.
And program managers. So we are going to talk a little bit more about some of those differences. I am not a product or program manager, so I will just throw out there that that is not my area of expertise. We are going to talk about what skills does a good project manager need in order to do their job. What skills are transferable from other roles if you are looking to make a move into project management. I'm going to give you a couple of resources. This is a great way to upskill, but there's plenty more. And then last but not least, I'll let you know how to stay in touch with me if that's something that you're interested in. So let's take a look at what is a project. According to Project Management Institute, a project is temporary in that it has a defined beginning and end in time, and therefore a defined scope and resources. So that's a really stuffy way to say that a project is something with a beginning and an end. So for example, building a website is considered a project, in that we conceive the website, we take it all the way through to launch. Now, you could argue that there are some, website updates and management and ongoing work. So there may be more projects that come after the launch, but a website is a really good example of something that is a project. It is, building it is temporary. The project is also unique in that it is not a routine operation. It is a specific set of operations that are defined to accomplish a single goal. So a project team often includes people who don't usually work together, sometimes from different organizations or across multiple geographies even. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, because this does come into play when you think about the skills that you need to be a great project manager. So project management then really is the application of the knowledge, the skills, the tools, and the techniques, project activities to meet the project requirements. That's a very stuffy, this definition also came from Project Management Institute, who I love dearly, but they're very, very formal. So let's talk about what a project manager actually does then. So generally speaking, the project manager's job is to keep the project within what we talked about, which is the schedule, the scope, and the budget. So these are sometimes referred to as triple constraints. You know the popular saying, good work is never cheap and cheap work is never good, right? We know that. So that's kind of how it goes in project management too. Projects are usually constrained by at least one of these three factors. So if a client comes to you and says they want a website that is cheap, it probably won't be good and it probably won't be fast. If they come to you and say, we have all this money, We want a website. It might be good, it might be fast, but you're going to take all that money. So projects are usually constrained by at least one of these three factors. You can't have something that is good, fast, and cheap. Any questions about that?
I guess I do think about these constraints, usually like budget, scope. So these are just kind of the typical constraints. These are the top three that come up.
They're really, like, when you think about project management at the simplest level, this is really the easiest way to explain it, is that's what you're doing. So schedule, keeping all the trains on the track, knowing who the people are and where they fit. Scope, if the client's paying you $10,000 for a website and all of a sudden they also want daily social media posting, it really is role sort that the project manager is going to say, no, that's out of scope. Adding functionality, adding complexity to a project that's already underway. Really, really important part of a project manager's job. And then obviously managing the budget. If you spend your whole budget in the first 2 weeks of work, that's going to be a big problem for somebody, right? So if you want to keep it at the simplest level, it's really that you're managing these 30 things. Go ahead.
Oh, I said, yeah, that makes sense.
So again, it's not always that simple. Within project management, you're looking at your 5 processes, which are initiating. So that's getting ready to do the project. Planning is really the details of how it's going to get done. Executing, getting it done, monitoring and controlling. And that's where we're really looking at things like schedule, scope, and budget. Are we moving at a pace that's sustainable and appropriate for the project? Are we staying on scope? Are we spending too much money? And then closing is really the final piece of it. And this is something that I personally feel that many project managers actually tend to either gloss over or try to do quickly. And I think it's worth slowing down through. So closing is where you're doing things like post-mortems, having some time to document and reflect on what went well in the project and what could we have done better for next time. Even things kind of dovetailing with HR, if anybody is moving from the HR space, like looking at your people management, what people that were on your project excelled, where were they challenged, what went right, what went wrong, who worked well together. And you can do this in a very positive way. It's really about documentation and learning versus straight up like a disciplinary thing. And I think some people see closing and all of that reporting as being very disciplinary, but really what I think it does is it gives you a really good opportunity to reflect on the project, what you liked, what you didn't. I've worked with project teams where we've all gotten really close and we've bonded and we stay in touch after the project, and others where, it's a group of people assigned to do a project. We do the project together, everybody moves on and nobody speaks to each other again, and everything in between. So those are the 5 processes. These are, and when we talk about certification later, these 5 processes are what Project Management Institute assesses project management professionals on when it comes to a PMP exam. These are the 5 domains that you're being assessed on. So how does it all work? As a project manager, you need to focus on a lot of things all at one time. So you might start with planning, and this could be from a time or resource perspective. So for example, let's kind of play this one out a little bit. If you have 3 months to plan a birthday party, what do you need to do and when do you need to do it by? That was a real question.
Say, Taylor said set up a timeline. Oh yeah, Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah.
Would you prefer that we participate in the chat or in the turning on our camera or our audio?
Audio's good.
I would say write out a timeline of every possible task that needs to be done.
Perfect. So can you give me a couple examples? I'm just going to pick on you since you're talking.
Yeah. Buy candles and a cake, depending on what the person wants. Do your guest list down and invite them. Just work backwards for everything you want to happen at the party.
Okay.
And work backwards from there.
Great. Anybody else? Anything else that we have to do to plan our birthday party in 3 months?
Get a sense of your budget. So
Yeah.
make sure you are aligned with whoever you're working with on this party around like what they can afford. Also, just if you're working with a team, just have a sense of like different projects of scope. So like what is considered, are you mainly focusing on the day of? Are there things that, leading up, like whether it is, are you also in charge of sending out the invitations, or does that fall to someone else? Like that, those pieces as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that was a great example. So clarifying role, who's doing what, when are they going to do it? I heard invitation. So, if we're going to go ahead.
Also got a plan for emerging complexities, contingency plan. What if, you planned your party at the park and it's going to be raining and stuff like that? Or
Yeah.
the, I don't know, bakery late on your cake order or something like that. Bunch of them, and you have to come up with contingency plan.
Yep. These are all really, really good. So you guys, if you've ever planned a birthday party, you have project management skills. The other thing that a couple of you touched on is you're going to spend a lot of time documenting. So you live by these project plans, statements of work. As the project manager, it might be your job to tell a client they can't add to the project, or they'll need to add more people, more budget, or change the deadline. So going back to our birthday party example, if you find out that you're planning a birthday party for someone and they have their heart set on a certain venue and it's not available, they might need to add more money to get another venue, or they might need to bring in more people to help them find a place to have it. So, or they might need to change their date. That's another option to get what you want. So using all of these variables and being able to see them is really important when it comes to being a project manager. So let's talk a little bit about how project management is different than product management. So project management, we talked about, is really about managing a temporary endeavor, whatever that is. It could be a birthday party, a website, a social media plan. It could be launching new software into a company. It could actually be building software. But when you think about product management managers are really doing more than just, they might manage projects within their product, but they're doing a lot more research. They are taking an idea, taking it through that minimum viable product stage, deciding when it should go from alpha to beta to full launch. They're concepting a roadmap with this project. It may be that they're looking at adding features, taking features away, all kinds of things related to a specific product. So they may be managing projects for their product, but their focus is really more on the product than just projects. So that's how it's a little bit different. They may need some slightly more specialized skills in some cases. They need a little bit more user experience and research skill set than a project manager would need. Again, I've never been a product manager. I focus more on project management. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer some really detailed, nuanced questions around product, since that's not what I personally do. So since we're all here to upskill, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I became a project manager, because a lot of the project managers that I work with and that I know, none of us really woke up in the morning and said, I want to be a project manager. So my journey to project management was a little bit different than some other folks who came in from other technical disciplines. I didn't start with a technical background. My project management journey started, I had been working in sales for about a decade and was really focused more on sales enablement. So it was helping other people sell versus being a salesperson myself. It was research, it was strategy, it was training, it was messaging. And the role that I was in like 2012, 2013, was really focused on communication for this sales enablement group. So my role was really kind of where like an administrative assistant left off. So higher level communication strategy, bigger presentation, more strategic communication versus just transcribing, an email or sending a memo. It was really thinking through a lot of complexity around communication with very high level leadership within a very large company. So making sure they had all of the information that they needed sometimes to make decisions or approve things, or even just understand the kind of work that we were doing. During that time, I was supporting some very large projects. Like I mentioned, the Salesforce.com implementation, was supporting some transformation in a few of our business units, and a couple other things that really led to more than just communication. And it started to become real project management. And as part during my time in that role, as part of my development plan, I started to realize that I was actually just doing project management, and I was spending a lot of my day doing things that were more project management, less communication. And what I also learned was that by looking at Project Management Institute's salary data, project managers made a lot more money than communications professionals. So looking at some of the skills that I had as a communications professional that I was using as a project manager, I was gathering requirements for projects. I was scheduling meetings with other departments. I was making sure that the right stakeholders were getting updated at the right time. I was making sure that if we had a deadline, it was being met. I was managing people, managing budgets, helping with communication, documenting process, and all of that's really project management. It's not just communication. So I asked my boss if they would sponsor my PMP after about 2.5 years of doing this, and she said yes. And that's when I started to really look at project management more seriously. So I'm curious, for those of you who are thinking about project management, if you want to kind of shout out a couple of those skills that you're either wondering if they're transferable or thinking of, or they're the reason that you're thinking about project management.
Relationship building.
Relationship building, absolutely.
Process optimization.
Process optimization, that's a lot of big words. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by process optimization?
Yeah, so being able to look at the current processes and procedures that are in place and finding ways to streamline those so that they're more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect. What else?
You asked what made us interested in project management. I was told by actually multiple freelance clients that I was a good designer, but I'm a really good project manager. So I'm trying to just like go with the flow of feedback. So
yeah, that's great. As long as that's something that's exciting for you. But yeah, that's the feedback you're getting. And that was feedback that I had gotten too. My boss at one point went, you're okay at this communication stuff, but you're really doing better with the project management. And I also followed it, and I'm really glad that I did. What else?
So for me, it was a factor of I was trying to get into tech as a developer.
Okay.
And I have years of experience building teams, leading teams, creating departments, so forth in the non-tech industry. And as trying to enter tech as a developer, I actually started having recruiters and hiring managers encourage me to pursue the roles of PM and TPM because it would play better to my background and my strengths. So that's kind of where I really started exploring it.
Great. Anybody else?
I'll share that consideration for me in the future is possibly advising brands on business execution. So coming from an operations background for my career, a sales and operations background, I believe perhaps just having a designation or a more obvious call out to why I could manage those projects for them brought my interest here.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. So, and again, since I know a lot of folks are exploring different career options, where do project managers work? I would say right now they work everywhere. Construction, sales, marketing, operations, all different companies. I've done projects with companies that are household names. I've done projects with companies that are very small and everything in between. Their chances are, if there's a company on your bucket list, they have a project manager somewhere within their organization. Some companies are very what they call projectized, where a lot of their work is done as projects. Others are not as specialized in projects and may only do them from time to time and everything in between. So it's definitely something that you want to consider when you're doing your research, when you're looking at companies and at roles, and then also looking at opportunities for advancement. I always recommend, especially if you enter an organization as a project manager, the title project manager is one that I think can be pretty deceptive, because an entry-level project manager and a very senior project manager, a lot of the times are just called project manager. Some companies may use, project manager 3 or whatever to designate experience levels of experience, or junior project manager or senior project manager, but not always. So those titles can be a little bit deceptive. And if advancement is something that's really important to you as you're interviewing and collecting information about organizations, asking about career pathing can be really important. Some people who are project managers just want to go in and do their project manager thing and that's it. Others are looking for things like head of a project management office or organization, vice president of project management, moving back into operations, whatever that looks like. And again, I'm not here to tell you what's right, what's wrong, but it's definitely something that as you are contemplating your project management journey, it's something that's worth thinking about, especially for those of you who are exploring careers or even potential career change. So to help you out with that, I did put together a couple of resources that can help you continue to upskill into project management. PMI.org is Project Management Institute's website. They have great information about the discipline. They put out career, like state of the industry, how popular, how many job openings, salary information. If you're in a negotiation, being able to take that data to a hiring manager or recruiter and say, this is the industry standard for a project manager, and really being able to put that stake in the ground is really helpful. So I would encourage you, if this is something that you're considering, I'd encourage you to look at those resources. The next thing on here is the Google Project Management course. This just came out. A client of mine was doing it and had very good things to say about it. I wish I could tell you a little bit more about it or how long it takes, but unfortunately I don't have that information yet. It came out, I want to say about a month or two ago. So it's brand new and the first group of folks are just cycling through it now. If you're interested in the more techie side or digital project management, the Digital Project Manager is a website, and I believe they have a Slack community that you can join. And some programming. They also have a salary survey. So on the tech side, also having that data around salary. Project Management Institute is more global. They do filter down by geography, but Digital Project Manager is really going to give you some great salary information and career pathing information specifically for digital projects. And then if you're looking for more training, Louder Than 10 does run an apprenticeship. You can get more information from them about how to get in. I know they offer some coursework. They also offer things through employers. So it might be something that if you're headed into a new organization as a project manager, it might be something that you talk to your potential company or boss about. So before we open things up for discussion, I'm going to give you my contact information. I can always be reached through my website, my Twitter, or LinkedIn if you'd like to stay in touch with me. But I am actually going to stop sharing my slides so that I can see all of your faces and open it up for some questions.
I definitely have a question, but I'll also give the floor in case anybody else wants to kick us off. Okay,
Hi, Marissa. I can,
go ahead.
do you want me? Oh, okay. Hi, Marissa. So, actually, I did reach out to you on Ladies Get Paid. You had like a client that was looking for a PM, but you never got back to me, girl.
I did get back to you. The position was filled.
Oh, it was really?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Then it was
Yeah.
somebody else.
Those messages disappear if you don't see them quick enough. Sorry about that.
Oh,
but
that's, I think that's why I never received your message. It probably disappeared. But anyways, so I've been doing HR in the tech industry for like 5+ years. And every time I apply for a project manager role, they tell me that I'm not qualified for it because it's all been HR work. So how do I how do I figure out what industry I want to go in?
Mhm.
And how can I maneuver my way into that industry? Like,
yeah.
let's say I want to do like advertising industry. Like, how would I do that?
So again, going back to some of what we talked about with those transferable skills is number one. Number two, you're not alone. So when I was leaving I was in a very similar situation to you. I was leaving a sales enablement role and looking for a project manager role. And I had a PMP. So I had the letters after my name and I'm going, this should be the easiest thing in the world. It should be like shooting fish in a barrel. Everybody said they want project managers and now I'm a project manager officially. And somebody should just give me a job now, right? And that's not what happened. I was interviewing and I would get similar feedback like, we want PMP plus construction industry. We want PMP plus agency experience. We want. And it was really, really frustrating. So the job that I took right after I got my PMP was not a project manager role officially. I took another sales role, but it was like sales operations. So everything I sold, I had to operationalize, which is basically project management. And I was able to find a smaller agency that was looking for a project manager. They'd never had one. And that's how I broke in. So some of it's just patience. Some of it is really focusing on those transferable skills. And some of it, to be honest with you, is like right place, right time. And also to clarify, the client that I was trying to place a PM for was looking for something very, very specific. So, if you start down that path and you're able to get feedback from the inside from, a project consultant like me, who knows what they're looking for, make friends with those people, kind of really dig into what they're looking for. My client was looking for something very specific, and sometimes he didn't even know what he was looking for. So, we found the right person. It was a combination of right place, right time, right skill set. But don't let that discourage you. Really focus on those transferable skills and what you want. Sometimes, there's a lot to be said for that passion. So, continue to bring the passion, tell people what you want. And I think using a cover letter to explain why is also something that's going to be helpful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Who else?
I have a question. So, my most professional, the most of my professional life was in academic program management. So I'm running academic. So I do a lot. There is a lot to do with scope and delivering, but not so much with budget, because we have it's beside me. Regardless, I became interested in project management, and when I went to PMP institution website, basically I'm sorry, my children. I'm in a meeting. Go away. Apologies. So, I go onto the website and I read the list of eligibility requirements to, take the test. And the nature of my work simply does not have projects, so to speak. Even though I am coming up with certain projects for my students and for my program, they do not technically qualify as projects in the eyes. I cannot, for example, provide the number of hours I spend on project management, which is one of the PMP test requirements.
Yes.
And then oftentimes what you mentioned, finding some smaller role for the entry, just to enter the project management job. I feel like an imposter because I'm reading through the requirements. And it's overwhelming because, I cannot say I've done this. I know I can do this, but how do you convince the people? And this kind of never ending loop.
Mm-hmm.
between wanting to do more and not qualifying for it. So I took actually the UC Berkeley course.
Okay.
It's called Leading Complex Projects because it's unlike PMP, I can actually just take it, which comes across the traditional project management that you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, describing what a project is. But I don't feel like I'm getting any closer.
Okay. I can't, there's nothing that can change about needing to document those hours in order to sit for the PMP. If it's something that you're interested in doing, I would start planning for that. When I was in a very projectized role when I sat for the PMP, and my hour as far like I was not, my company didn't time track. So I had to go back and like use my calendar and look at all the meetings and try to kind of as best I could figure it out. If you do get audited by PMI when you apply, I was not audited, but what I've heard from other people is that it's more about going through the audit process than anything else. So they're very, very process driven. If that's something you want to sit for, you're just gonna have to plan for it. As far as the how do you tell people that you can do things you've never done piece of it, think about the closest, go back to you think you can do it. I believe you. Tell me why. So, maybe you've never managed a project, but we use the birthday party example. I'm sure there's 500 other examples of things you've done at work that you could technically call a project. Maybe they're not as big, maybe they're not as complex, but some of those smaller projects are just as important when it comes to running a business and an organization. So being able to speak to some of those things that you have done might be helpful. Again, we talk about this even, and I'm going to say this because we're all women, but men will put their hand up for a job when they have 40 or 50% of the qualifications, and we as women sometimes wait till we have 100%. So I wouldn't let that scare you. Sometimes those job descriptions are wish lists. You're not, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I just ended an engagement after 6 weeks with a client who I'd been trying to close for a year and a half. We finally closed. They had changed project management software. It was one that I'd never used. And, I said to myself, well, you've seen one, you've seen them all. You can do this. You've learned every other project management tool. I got in there. They had been through, since I had met them, they had been through 3 project managers. 2 weeks into my engagement, their PM left. The tool was much more complicated. Their needs were much more complicated. So I wrapped up my discovery session, started working through some of the first set of deliverables, delivered them, said to the team, listen, the work I delivered is fine. I don't believe it's what you need. As I've been doing my work in my research, there's this other consultancy. They've done this 1,800 times. I think you need to go work with them. I'm happy to facilitate a transfer. I'm happy to help you get set up with them, but I am not right for, I can do this work. Is it going to be right for you? Is it going to further your business goals? Maybe. Is there somebody who's going to be able to do this for you better and faster? And now that you don't have a project manager able to get you unstuck in a way that I can't right this second? Yes. So, sometimes you have to try and put yourself out there, but you also have to know that sometimes it's not going to work, and that's okay.
I think something you said, Marissa, just prior to that really struck me, and that is sometimes they don't know what they need.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't know what they want. And to me, that's the part of this discovery process of asking them questions to determine that. It still might not be enough of a filter to see if you're in alignment. And Alexandra, I mean, you're a mama, you know how to do everything. So, you can work circles around them, honestly. So, I like how you described that not all, you can sometimes go up to bat and not always win. So I think that is really great advice, and should make us all not as afraid to step out and try.
Yeah, exactly. And Connie, you brought up something really important, which is the asking questions. As a project manager and as somebody who kind of is selling those projects, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times, the first part of our job in that initiation phase is getting real clear on what the problem we're solving is. You know, even things like, I was in a meeting with a client today, and the conversation we were having was very granular and very nitpicky around the definition of what does it mean for a piece of content to be live. Does it mean it's finished? Does it mean it's live on the website? Does it mean it's been emailed out? Like what is live? Who needs to be informed? And there was a whole rubric around it, because having that exact common vocabulary is so important with a project to make sure that everything is really buttoned up. So a lot of what I do day in and day out is ask questions. Who, why, how, what? Somebody had mentioned, I think it was you, Taylor, process optimization. Somebody said something about process optimization.
It wasn't me, but that was a cool word.
Yeah, process optimization is going through and asking, why do you do it in that order? How does it happen? What's next? So yes, absolutely. And Beth, I do see that your hand is up. So did you have a question, comment, something you wanted to throw in too?
Yeah, I wanted to throw in a comment, and this is actually directed towards Alexandria. I've actually completed the Google Project Management Certificate, so if anybody wants to talk about that, I'd be more than glad to do that some other time. But I know one of your concerns, or what I'm hearing is a concern, is that you can't get the hours in that you need to set for the exam. I did just want to share this and throw it out there, is that if you do take the Google Project Management Professional Certification, through Coursera, you actually do earn, I believe it's 100 or maybe 100 plus hours towards the PMP cert, or towards certificates through PMI. So that might be another way that you could go about getting those hours that you're needing, is to.
There's two different sets of hours that we're talking about.
Okay.
The first set is you have to have 4,500 hours of project management leadership experience that is non-consecutive at work. The second set of hours, which is what you're talking about, that the Google course does satisfy, is that you have to, in order to be able to sit for the exam, you have to have 35 hours with a registered education provider, which I'm going to assume Google is. The other thing with the hours is every cycle, which is 3 years with PMI, you need 60 PDUs or continuing education hours. So I think, while your suggestion is awesome, and I'm really excited that those hours counts, I think what Alexandra needs is the 4,500 hours documented.
Yeah, because my UC Berkeley will cover the educational requirements for the hours.
Right.
I need.
Okay.
And
So it's those.
experience.
Yeah, it's those hours, and those are the much harder ones to cover.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though, and it's great to meet somebody who's finished the course. Like I said, I had a client who was doing it and heard very good things about it, so I'm very excited that it's something that's available. What else?
Can you provide any advice on how to rework the resume, of a non-project management person to reflect more of the things that project management positions are looking for?
Sure, I can try. I am not a deep expert in resumes, so yes, Melinda.
Yeah, I'm also curious to hear what you would say. You want to find the key results that are most relevant to project management and put those on your resume. So if it's stakeholder management, if it's working through the planning, if it's managing the constraints of time, scope, budget, state that on your resume. Put those things that reflect project management as if you were a project manager. I think Marissa really said it earlier, of think about everything at work that was like a project and reframe it as if it was. So many things are actually projects. There was a set beginning, there were like phases that happened, and then there was a closing of that and moving on to something else. So think about those things and what the key results were and start to put them on the resume. You should have the first bullet point under every job title should be just a key result, not the busy work. I want to know the outcome. I want to know the boiled down thing you did. Looked like Connie was going to say something there too.
Yeah, I liked what you said. I was going to say, oh, I like that, because that's like business events. Events, or in our company, we used to call them initiatives. These were our strategic initiatives. So they weren't ever called a project, but it required a project planner to keep them moving. So any kind of business events, that was really helpful, because now I'll go through and sort of look through my resume on different events that were actually led like a project.
Yep, and that's exactly what I would say too, is the things, in strategic initiatives, strategic planning, any of those annual processes that you do, even things like taking notes in a meeting. Like, we all do it, but when you're a project manager, it's documentation. So think about not only the kind of documentation that you collect in your role, but how you're using it. You know, I documented these 17 processes so that my department could automate something. I don't know, whatever the result is. So that documentation process, that research process, anytime you're doing any of that, even procurement, managing contracts, a lot of times with project management, procurement is a huge part of it. It's part of the PMP exam. So anytime you're working with vendors, with contracts, any of that stuff can be highlighted in a resume that is leaning towards project management. Somebody mentioned at the beginning relationship management. So anytime you are either managing direct reports, or, you know, in my opinion, if I was going to be hiring a PM, the thing I think is more important than managing direct reports is, as the project manager, unless you are in a truly projectized organization, 9 times out of 10, the people that are on your project do not report to you. I'm going to say that again. The people who are on your project do not report to you. You need these people to do their work on time and hit the deadlines, but you are not their boss. So how do you make that happen? There are a number of ways. Some of it is just, you know, bringing everybody into a room, having a conversation about it. You know, sometimes even things like just asking people, can you have this done by Friday? Goes a long way versus, I need you to do this by Friday, or worse, give me this on Friday. So a lot of those things, if you've done them in your career, informally even, take credit on your resume and talk about the impact of those relationships. You know, even early in my sales career, working with the marketing coordinator, she and I did a lot of projects together, and the fact that we had a good relationship meant that we did better work together. And that was something that I talked about in my interview for the bigger jobs. So think about those things too, and not just, you know, I was in charge. Even when you weren't in charge, you're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of your to-do list. You're in charge of a lot more than you might feel like you are sometimes, even if you're in a more entry-level role. So think about those times where you've had to manage up, you've had to lead something, and put those into your resume.
I love that. And I want to jump in because you brought up the perspective that I've been dying to ask. So Marissa, a lot of us who are here are also in job search boot camp.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that we're here is, yes, to get insight into how to get a job and break into tech, but also you work with a lot of clients, and I am curious, would you ever recommend someone that had all of the skills, the key results, showed that they were capable of leading a project? Would you ever recommend that person if they did not have the certification?
Oh yeah, especially in the digital world. So within digital project management, there is a lot of debate about certification. A lot of digital agencies do not like them. So that was part of the reason I was kind of persona non grata when I started interviewing for these jobs. Is like I go to an agency, they'd be like, you're a PMP and you have no agency experience. That means you are stuffy, too process oriented, and we don't want that here. So that again, nuance on the digital side. Like when I worked corporate, like we would have meetings, hours of meetings and meetings about meetings to plan for the meetings. And we would just talk and plan. When you go into a digital marketing agency as a project manager, it is like, it's bad sports analogy, but it's like a race car pit crew. You are slamming the wheels on as that thing is pulling out of the station. It is faster. There is less time to plan. People just move quickly. It's messier. And again, that's not all agencies. I work with an agency right now that is super duper process oriented, and he's got a process document for every little thing that you do in the agency, and it's not like that, and it's wonderful. But a lot of times these big agencies, you don't get a lot of training, you don't get a lot of time to plan. You just kind of have to put everything together as quickly as possible and keep an eye on it. And maybe you have too many projects at once. I worked for an agency where I was managing like 47 clients by myself, and that was not realistic or sustainable. So that's kind of the other thing to think about when you're thinking about a career in project management is what type of projects do you want to be managing and how thin can you spread yourself? Some people can manage 4. Some people can manage 8. I've worked in agencies that are highly processed where I can manage 20 at a time. And it really just depends on the nature of the project, how many you can manage. Even in my own work as a consultant right now, which is I'm split pretty evenly between hands-on project management, more strategic project management consulting, and then content development. So I write for a number of publications, both in the tech space, in the direct-to-consumer space. I think that covers most of my industries right now, but I've written for clients in every industry, and I'm managing 15 relationships right now, and my head is spinning.
That brings me to my next question. The fact that you're working with so many clients and you're spread so thin, sounds to me like there is still demand for project management, but what is the state of the industry? Is project management still up and coming? Is there still demand? Do clients want project managers?
Yes, 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 and yes. The state of the industry is that project managers are in high demand. At one point, I had 3 or 4 clients looking, and I finally had to draw a boundary with clients and go, I am not a recruiter. This is not what I do. It got to a point where I got burned a couple times trying to help. And I just kind of, for me personally, had to put the line in the sand and say, I am not a recruiter.
Yeah. We love hearing that. We love knowing that there is demand. We will get those applications out there. And then the other thing too, that we ask everyone that comes and speaks with Lessons Up, when we're looking for a job, our strategy is we'll apply and then we'll look for someone on LinkedIn to reach out to get a networking call, to go for that warm referral ask. Mm-hmm. If that's a tactic that works with the clients that you know of and have been working with in the last 5 years.
So this gets a little dicey for me personally. And Melinda, we've known each other for a while, and I'm always the one who wants to jump in and help. Yeah. Somebody reached out to me today who couldn't attend this talk and goes, hey, like very smartly, very correctly goes, hey, can I, I'm going to get the recording and then can we set up time to talk? And I thought about it and said, well, here's the problem that I have as, a person, and just something to watch out for is, like I just said, I have a business, I have my, 15 client relationships that I'm managing. I try to have a life. 35, I think you told me earlier today, 35 people registered for this event.
I think it went up to 40 since then.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say it was 35 people registered for this event. What if all 35 of you want to have the networking call? You're really interested in project management. We want to have the networking call. 35 calls?
Right. And that doesn't make sense for you.
No, it doesn't make sense for me. But that said, you know, and the ask was, can we chat after, like, if instead what I and this is just general advice for me and what I personally prefer, this is not everybody. And I do it even like people will do it to me after a networking event. Hey, I saw you were at so-and-so event. Can we like have a one-on-one? No, we cannot have a one-on-one. That said, if you say, I saw you worked with XYZ client and I'm interested because of XY, like if you give me enough to go on, that's when I'm happy to get on the phone. So, you know, just sending the ask is probably not going to be enough. Because if you figure the folks that you're asking are like me, you know, they've got these demanding jobs, they have kids, we're just coming out of a pandemic, life is happening. Is the tactic the right way to go? Is getting that warm introduction? Yes, that's exactly what you want. The other piece of advice I always give people is like, even if you're not, I know you guys are all looking or thinking about looking or exploring, or you wouldn't be here with Lessons Up. But even after you land the job, continue to do this networking stuff, because, you know, if people come back, like I had somebody come back to me, you know, a year later, I met her at a networking event. We've now worked together 5 or 6 times because we've stayed in touch and we've nurtured that relationship. So networking can't be that one and done thing that you're doing because you're looking for a job. When you go to look for the next job, as your network gets more robust, you know, people come to me all the time like, you're so well connected and you know everybody and you blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, that's great. And ironically, my biggest network is here in Philadelphia area where I live, and less than 10% of my business and my income comes from this region. So, you know, what does that say to me? It's, you know, branching out and doing more networking outside of the Philadelphia area. It's more speaking engagements. It's more opportunity to get out in front of new audiences. And it's continuing to network. You know, maybe one of you guys will be hiring me as a consultant somewhere. You never know. So, you know, even if we can't hop on the phone for half an hour now, like reach out on LinkedIn, send a note once in a while. You know, I respond to every LinkedIn request I ever get, even if it's a polite or less than polite no, depending on the message. But yeah, I think the advice is spot on. I just would caution people to remember when you're asking for time, and it's something that nobody ever told me when I was younger, and you know, people were very generous with their time, but I didn't always really think through the toll it sometimes, you know, the toll that it can take when somebody's taking a half an hour or an hour out of your day. And if you do ask for that call, the last thing I'll say is take control and be very mindful of the other person's time. Do the lift on the scheduling. Don't make them look for you or find something. You take control of that. Make it very easy for them to schedule with you and to meet with you, and follow up and you know, say thank you. Let them know what happened. You know, I've had people where I've done mentoring calls and they follow up and say, I completely ignored your advice. And I'm like, cool, but you know, you did your research, you talked to a bunch of people and you had your reasons, and I like to hear about it.
That's so helpful. In fact, after you said yes to this, I went and I emailed everyone in the cohort and was like, you guys got to come because Marissa will tell us what we need to hear. She'll tell it like it is, how we want to hear it, which is why I love
worse.
and on that note, we are super respectful of your time. We're coming to the end of the hour here. So just big thank you. And we want to support your thought leadership as well. So everyone will have a recording of this, and we'll have a little landing page with some of the keynotes that Marissa shared. And I'll send all of you a post that we can kind of just plaster it, let everyone know how useful this was. But is there anything else that we can include there? I guess we've got your contact information, but yeah, anything else we can do to support you and show how appreciative we are?
Yeah, I think you have all my contact stuff. Stay in touch, all the good stuff. You know, I can't wait to, and I'm in the Slack group with everybody now too, so I get to see all the announcements as everybody's finding new jobs, which is really exciting. Not gonna lie, I saw one the other day. I'm like, yes, there's somebody I didn't even know, and I'm like, this just makes my day.
Great. Yes. Well, yeah, we're excited to have you, and yeah, big thank you, and thank you for telling it like it is. And also, oh, just last note, No one here should ever be asking for a full half hour. We're asking for a 15-minute conversation. But that said, also, we're not running events so that you get 35 specific outreach asks for networking calls. We're more curious about how to do it when we're going out there. So big thank you.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah, and again, that was just meant to be an example, you know, and it was a very appropriate, relevant ask. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't expect that you're gonna take 35 calls from people in this community. It's just not possible.
Right.
But what everyone can do is take your advice and go out there and find people who have hiring on their profile for project management and use your tactics. And that's the goal for us.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Marissa.
Thanks, guys.
Is there anyone here who signed up for office hours? That was, okay. I will go to the other Zoom. If you signed up for office hours for today, I will go to the other Zoom and open it there. And bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.